My name is Christa Noel Robbins, and I'm an associate professor of art history at the University of Virginia. My research is mainly focused on the United States in the 20th century. In the fall of 2024, I rescheduled a class in solidarity with a student walkout in support of a referendum on divestment, a referendum that passed, by the way, but was ignored by the upper administration. I sent an email explaining why I was rescheduling class, expressing my solidarity with the Palestinian people, and reminding the students that they had just watched a documentary called Human Flow by the Chinese conceptualist artist Ai Weiwei. In that documentary, I interviews a group of Palestinian high school students in Gaza who express a sort of uncertainty about the future given that they can't move in and out of Gaza freely. I reminded the students that they saw this and linked up my rescheduling class from the divestment referendum with that documentary. That evening, I received a phone call on my personal cell phone from a person who did not identify himself, asking me if I had indeed rescheduled the class and to explain myself. And I, of course, did not respond to him, but let pro-Palestinian colleagues know, who immediately began to prepare me for any possible fallout from that email. I had a senior colleague contact the AAUP the very next morning, who reached out to me, and we began to make all preparations. There were eventually 5 results from that email. One was that the right-wing group Mothers Against Campus Antisemitism began a letter campaign against me where they sent multiple emails to the president, the provost, the dean, and me calling for my dismissal. I received over 900 emails. The dean indicated to me in conversation that she received many hundreds more. The email was leaked to right-wing news websites, including Tucker Carlson's Daily Caller, opening me up for further hate speech, including a rather hateful review of my book on Amazon that was posted there. I was the subject of multiple FOIA requests and had to hand over my syllabi, which were also leaked online. And there were 2 results that I think are most relevant. One was that I was called before the dean for possible censure. The actions she could take against me, as she and both the provost said multiple times, could range anything from termination to no action at all. And multiple different kinds of policies were cited by them, sometimes conflicting, that I may have been in violation of. And then finally, after all of this, there was a lawsuit, a rather unwieldy purported civil rights lawsuit that I was named in, among many others, that included a Title VI complaint. In both cases, I managed not to either suffer any kind of censure on the part of the administration, and the lawsuit was dismissed. Both of those results were due to the fact that colleagues rallied around me, and we acted collectively as opposed to my acting as an individual. As I said, the AAUP reached out to me the morning after I received that phone call, and we began to make plans. I had over 10 faculty, most of them senior, demand an in-person meeting with the provost, where we asked him, this is Ian Balcom, who is now the president of Middlebury, to answer to the fact that multiple faculty members were being called out, were being FOIA'd, were being doxxed, and also then, of course, addressing my case with him and asking him to answer to what kinds of protections the university would offer us. And among those protections was simply saying that pro-Palestinian speech was protected speech. The administration not saying that was opening us up to increased attacks. The AAUP insisted on being in the meeting with me when I was finally called before the dean. The dean continued to say that that wasn't a possibility, saying that it was an HR violation and that personnel matters are private matters, but we continued to insist. The AAUP followed up with both the provost and the dean multiple times, correcting the policy that they were citing that I had violated. In both cases, it would seem that the AAUP representatives knew policy far more than these administrators knew them, and I would say that that's an extraordinary value of a lot of AAUP representatives, is that they do know policy and the history of that policy. The dean eventually recommended no action against me, and I do feel that that is largely to do with the ways in which my colleagues stood beside me, the way in which we acted collectively, the way in which we demonstrated to both the provost and the dean that acting against one of us would mean acting against all of us. And as I said, the lawsuit was dismissed, and that was because we had 4 lawyers act for us pro bono. One was a lawyer in New York City, Jonathan Wallace, who was recommended to me by Legal, and the other 3 were local lawyers here in Charlottesville, Virginia, 2 of whom, Kelly Oriens and Thomas Frampton, are professors at the law school. They each lent their time to us. And if they hadn't, we don't know how that lawsuit would have turned out. But also, we would have had to manage the difficulties and anxiety of that lawsuit, which they helped to alleviate for us. So I want to end by saying that we should call on our comrades in our law schools. We should ask them to stand by us as colleagues and friends. And we should remember that the AAUP is a great resource, especially when it comes to the ways in which administrators are using policy violations as reasons for sanction and censure and termination. And I guess the final takeaway is that we need to stand together against these attacks. We need to act collectively and not individually, and let administration, both in the university, at the state, and the national level, know that we act as a collective.